Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Isabel and this is my library. For today's video, I bring you the BookTube Newbie Tag. Today I bring you the BookTube Newbie Tag. So although this is not my first video, I only have 2 other videos that I've already put together. I did stumble across this very cool concept and I wanted to participate in it. I really enjoyed seeing other people's newbie videos and getting to know a little bit more about them. And I figured this was an easy way into telling you a little bit about who I am and why I decided to start this channel. So I'll go ahead and begin with the very first question, which I've written down on my notes. And the question is, why did you start this channel? So first and foremost, I think what I love best about this is that it is a creative outlet for me. Although in my daily life as a teacher and a yearbook advisor, I do have some creative outlets. This is pretty much what allows me to have the most fun with my creativity. In addition to that, I've been a big fan of BookTube for a really long time. I've been watching content creators and wishing I were on the other side. I've enjoyed getting to know them through their tastes in books and following their recommendations and trying out books that are maybe a little bit out of my comfort zone. And I always really wish that I could do that for other people. Just how those booktubers were so inspiring to me and allowed me to find new favorite books, new 5-star books to read every month. I wanted to go ahead and try to do that for other people as well. And ultimately, I wanted to do this for fun. I always thought it was a lot of fun to try talking about books and geeking out over books and finding like-minded people who wanted to talk about books. So mostly this is my way of doing that. And hopefully I can accomplish some of those goals as to why I started this BookTube channel. So the second question is, what are you going to bring to BookTube that is unique? So I first think everyone has a unique vantage point when it comes to what they can contribute to BookTube or any channel. But I do feel that my strong suit is that I do have a background in English and I do teach books for a living. So I'm used to talking about books. So I think that's something that might be unique or different from other booktubers that I follow. The fact that I read a lot of classics and that I spend my days in my AP literature classroom talking to kids about books, I think is something that I'm kind of used to doing. But I would love to be able to do that with other adults and other people around the world and take into consideration their vantage points as to what kinds of books they're reading and what their opinions are. So I also think I do have a varied kind of reading preference or reading taste. So I do read a lot of poetry, which I don't find that a lot of booktubers that I've come across read. So I do read a lot of poetry. I love poetry collections. I also enjoy a lot of the classics, which I know can be a little bit intimidating. And there are a couple channels that I do follow in which booktubers talk about classics. So although that is not everything that I read, it's actually not even the majority of what I read. It is a big part of who I am as a reader. So I think maybe that's something that I can bring that's slightly more unique. But other than that, I think all of us that are doing this or attempting to do this have unique perspectives and can contribute unique things to the BookTube community overall. So moving on to the third question, why do you love reading? And I think that's a question I'm really passionate about because reading makes up a really large portion of my life. I do pride myself in the amount of books that I read every year, and it's not necessarily because I read so many or I can brag about them, but I just feel like there's so many books in the world that I would like to read that I know I'm never gonna get to read all of them. So I want to just devour them all. I want to read as many books as I can, and I always feel like there are more books that I'm interested that are coming out, and my backlist keeps getting larger and larger. There seems to be like an endless amount of books that I want to get to and maybe I'll never get to. I love reading because it allows me to live different lives. And I know that's maybe a bit cliche, but I've never gotten to experience certain things that characters in the books I read have experienced, and I never will, but I can live vicariously through them. Sometimes it's experiences I want to have, and other times those are experiences that I am glad I have never had. In particular in horror, thriller, mystery books. I'm happy it's not happening to me, but I can read about it from the safety of my reading nook. So I guess it's that exposure, right, to different things. I also like learning. I'm an avid learner. I think that's why I majored in English and education, because I loved learning. So I feel that books allow me to learn more about myself and the world around me. I enjoy reading memoirs and nonfiction books as well, because they allow me to understand certain concepts that I might not be familiar with, or hear varied voices from around the world. So ultimately, for me, reading allows me to do that. This question made me think of one of my favorite F. Scott Fitzgerald quotes that I share with my students every year at the beginning of the year, which says that is part of the beauty of all literature. You discover your longings are universal longings, that you are not lonely and isolated from anyone. And that phrase really resonates with me when it comes to books, because I think that's something that, whether we are reading about others' experiences and feeling like we're a part of them, or whether we are sharing our experiences about the books that we read with others, that allows us to feel connected to the world around us, feel connected to others. And ultimately, I think that's something that I also hope to accomplish with this channel. I know that was a very long-winded response, but I had a lot to say for that one. So next was the question of, what are your favorite books? And this was very overwhelming. I started looking around my library and pulling off the shelves all of my favorite books. There were some that I found easily, others I struggled a little bit to find, and some are still missing somewhere in my shelves. But I did pull down a couple of my very favorite books, and I just wanted to share with you, like, in one or two words, like, why that book is special to me, or why I enjoy these particular books. And these are in no particular order, they're just in the stack next to me. So one of my favorite books is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. And this is basically the first classic that made me fall in love with books. That's why it's so special to me. Another favorite is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. I really enjoy this thriller. I love that it takes place in New York. I love that it is a gothic ambiance. There's so many things I tapped in this book when I first read it, because I was immersed in the story, and I really loved it. Next, I have The Trees Grew Because I Bled There. And I love this particular book because it is a collection of some of the scariest short stories I've ever read. And I have read a lot of Eric LaRocca before, but this particular book is the one that I find is the most interesting, simply because a lot of these stories were not just horrifying or scary, but they actually were very sentimental and they made me cry. So I really enjoyed that this was able to resonate with me and make me feel something besides fear or disgust, or, you know, the normal things that horror makes us feel. I believe it was like the first and second story and I was already like crying. So I really enjoyed this one. Another book that's one of my favorites is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. And the reason this is on my list is because this is one of the scariest books I've ever read. The eeriness that this book produces and the anxiety that it made me feel when I first read it is something I don't think I'll ever forget. Next, I have The One by John Mars. And this book is one of the books that made me fall in love with sci-fi. I really love the multiple POVs, and I really love this concept of finding the one for you through some scientific or DNA kind of premise. I really enjoyed it. I really loved how each of the chapters ended on a cliffhanger, and it was super bingeable for me. I also love Lost in the Moment and Found by Shannon McGuire. And the reason I love this book so much is because it's my favorite in the Wayward Children series, because it follows Lundy, my very favorite character. And again, this is probably volume in this series that made me cry the most. Next is The Turn of the Key, Ruth Ware. This is my favorite Ruth Ware, and I absolutely loved how it reminded me of other stories that I really enjoy, like The Turn of the Screw. So I enjoyed the premise of it with the haunted house and the smart home, and I thought it was a very smart book. I enjoyed that like gothic kind of vibe to it. Another one of my favorite books is The Awakening by Kate Chopin. So this in particular is a book that I hold very dear to my heart. I teach it every year to my students in AP Literature, and I just find it to be an incredibly moving story. It's one of my favorite classics, and Edna Pontellier is one of those characters that is just unforgettable. So this is quite a gem, especially for American feminist writing. Another favorite is The Measure by Nikki Erlich. This is, again, another sci-fi-ish kind of read. I just absolutely loved the concept of thinking, how would I feel if I knew how long I had to live? And if I were able to know how long I had to live, would I want to know that? And what would I do with that information? So this book brings up such important questions when it comes to this theme of the length of our lives and knowledge of our own mortality that I found to be incredibly profound. This was such an interesting read. Another favorite is In 5 Years by Rebecca Surley. So this is one of those books that made me cry for days on end after I finished it. I again like a little bit of that supernatural kind of element that a lot of Rebecca Surley's books have. And I love the friendship between the main character and her best friend Isabella, and this is a book that I don't think I could ever forget. Another Rebecca Surley I loved is One Italian Summer, and my favorite part about this is the beautiful relationship between mother and daughter, and I felt that resonated a lot with me and my relationship with my mom, and I found that this was such a beautiful concept of getting to know one's parents when they were young, and how many times we fail to recognize that our parents are people too, independent of their relationship to us. So that was probably my favorite part of this, along with the beautiful descriptions of Positano, which clearly marked its spot on my bucket list as a place that I have to visit soon in my life because of the beautiful, vivid descriptions of Positano in this book. Another favorite is Mary Oliver's Devotions. So Mary Oliver is one of my favorite poets. I find her works to be incredibly inspiring. Her talks of nature and the cycle of life and her position in the world is just something that is very important to me. I recently went ahead and reread this for a second time, and I found that I connected even more to a lot of her works. I found that her beautiful observations on life and the world around us were incredibly inspiring. Next is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. Initially, when I picked this up, this might have been one of my first Grady Hendrix books. I obviously picked it because of the cover. The 80s vibes and the VHS look is everything that I love in horror. But what pleased me the most about this was the beautiful friendship story, and I think that's something that most people who have read Grady Hendrix can relate to, how he writes female friendships in such a beautiful way. And I really loved all the 80s references in this. It has some of my favorite lines, and it's ultimately my favorite Grady Hendrix. Not a lot of romances on my list, but Beach Read is on my list. I mean, if I could, I'd probably add most of the Emily Henry books to my list. I think she's absolutely a wonderful writer, but Beach Read, and I know this is like an unpopular opinion, Beach Read is my favorite of all her books. I do find it incredibly sad, and I did cry a lot, but I really enjoyed reading, of course, the love story between our main characters, but mostly I enjoyed the perspective of the father-daughter relationship in this book. I think that's my absolute favorite part about this. Next is another short story collection, Out There by Kate Folk. This is a sci-fi short story collection, and it's very Black Mirror-ish, which is something that I'm incredibly interested in. Anything that has to do with the concepts of technology and how it affects the world around us and the choices that we make and the things that we do. And I found this to be a beautifully crafted collection of short stories, and I'm very interested to read her upcoming new release this year. Next is An Unwanted Guest by Sherry Lapina, and all I can say about this is that for me, this is the perfect locked room mystery. Obviously, kind of reminiscent of And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, which is another favorite that I cannot find anywhere on my shelves. This was just masterfully done. I really, really enjoyed it. And then my last favorite book, because this question seems to have gone forever, my last favorite book is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. And this classic is everything. I think it's an underrated gem. I love the characters. I love the gothic vibes of this. This book is just so haunting in every way. And it's just one of my favorite classics. And I also teach it every year to my students, so they know how much I like it. So now that I've shared with you all of my favorite books, probably more than you wanted to know, and extending this video by quite a bit, the next question number 5, is what challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will bring? And this is a pretty easy question. I think timing is probably my biggest challenge, simply because I'm a teacher, so a lot of my time is invested in lesson planning and grading essays. So I think finding the time to plan concept ideas, record my videos, and edit my videos will probably be the most challenging. But I think once I get the hang of it, like it'll be more manageable, at least. Next, when did you start reading? I've been an avid reader my entire life. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that my mom is also an avid reader. So from the moment I was very little, my mom would always read to me before bed. She fostered a love for reading in me. Since I was a little girl, we would go to the public library. I remember spending countless hours there and always begging her to drop me off and pick me back up later. And I have the best and fondest of memories of reading as a little kid, and the choose your own adventure books that I would check out from the library, and then later on the Fear Street books my parents would buy me at our local Walden Books in the mall. And I've just always loved reading. As I continued to grow, I still loved reading. I still had a passion for reading. It was an escape. It was my ability to again learn about the world around me, and I loved it so much I decided to major in English, and I continued reading throughout my college days, many times reading 10 to 12 books per course. And I loved it so much I became a teacher, and as a teacher I try to instill that same passion for reading in my students, and yeah, it's just something that's a big part of my life. Question number 7 is, where do you read? So thankfully, thanks to audiobooks, I can read everywhere and all the time. But seriously, like, audiobooks allow me to read when I'm taking a walk around my neighborhood, when I'm cooking, when I'm showering, when I'm driving. I read a lot. I do a lot of audiobook reading, but I also enjoy physical reading as well. Physical reading is a big part of my life as well. And I enjoy reading in my library. I enjoy reading on the couch. I enjoy reading on my patio. Just pretty much everywhere that I can relax and enjoy whatever book I'm currently working on. I read in bed as well. Love my Kindle for that. And yeah, the answer is everywhere. I read everywhere I can, and I'm able to. Question number 8 is, what genres do you read? So I have my favorites, obviously. So I love horror. I really enjoy thrillers. I absolutely love murder mysteries. The categories I read a little bit less of are historical. I don't really read a lot of historical fiction. I don't really read a lot of fantasy either. I do read a lot of classics. I read a lot of poetry, and yeah, I also enjoy nonfiction and memoirs. So I'd have to say I'm pretty open to most genres, although the ones I consume most, if I had to narrow it down, it'd be horror, thriller, mystery, and classics. Those would be the top ones. And now for question number 9 is asking about my book collection. So I really pride myself in my book collection. I am fortunate enough to have a room dedicated to all of my books, And I like to always say that this is my husband's like little love project for me. When we moved into this house, he always knew that it was a lifelong dream of mine to have all my books displayed, and so he basically went ahead and built me the room, and I was able to decorate and make this my own little happy place. So yeah, this is pretty much my collection of books. I have about 2,000 books in my physical collection. Obviously books come and go, although I do have a hard time letting go of a lot of them that I should probably unhaul. But this is basically what you see, my collection of books. And of course, I'm very open to sharing more of my shelves with you if that's something that you are interested in seeing from me in the future in this channel. And that's pretty much all I have for the 9 questions. This was so much fun to do. I can't wait now to hashtag this and see what other people have done for their newbie tags. If you're a newbie, I'd love to connect with you and maybe talk to you a little bit about how you're enjoying your experience as a new booktuber and what you're learning and what we have in common. So it'd be great to hear from some of you and just kind of receive some validation that this is working out. So thank you so much again for watching this video. Like and subscribe if you feel compelled to, and if not, then I'll just see you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye.